Coming up on the Angus Report, we discuss the use of drone technology in agriculture.
Zippy Duvall tells Farm Bureau members to prepare for a fight with the new Waters of the United States rule.
Black's Barbecue is a successful fifth-generation restaurant in Lockhart, Texas.
And we look at Minnie Lou Bradley's influential life in the new I Am Angus documentary. This is the Angus Report. Welcome to the Angus Report. I'm Bob Cervera.
And I'm Clint Mefford.
This week, we're talking about drone technology. Ray Asabedo, a consultant for TopCon Agriculture, gave some drone purchasing recommendations to producers at the 2018 K-State Ranching Summit.
If we take the Midwest, Kansas here in specific, it's constantly windy days, and so you have to have a drone that's capable of flying in winds up to 25 miles an hour is pretty common. We're always going to have adverse weather patterns that the drone's going to be subjected to, and so it actually needs to be waterproof, dustproof, almost industrial grade to deal with these elements. I don't recommend any rancher starting off spending $30,000 on a drone when they never have done anything with it. There's going to be plenty of drone platform options with basic intelligence and sensors that start as little as $500. And so a farmer or rancher can basically get started with a low-risk situation like that. And then once their feet are more wet and they're feeling comfortable, they can start moving up to more advanced grade platforms that will say have both RGB, regular color imagery, and thermal technology on there, which obviously would increase the cost, but now they know directly how to use it.
Asabedo also encouraged producers to recognize drones for what they are and what they are not, along with the technology's potential.
The biggest misconception that people have about drones is that they think at the current status of them, they will give them a recommendation for the ranch immediately, like tell them exactly where their cattle are at, or give them a nitrogen recommendation on their corn. Those things are still under development, and so right now, if a farmer or rancher went to get in drones today, they should go in with the expectation of just being able to get a bird's eye view of what's happening in the field. And so if we're looking at the best way to get the most value out of drone technology, it'll be working with stuff like smart tags, with cloud platforms, with smartphones in the back of your pocket. And so it's connected devices, Internet of Things they like to call it, is where drones are going to be a valuable tool in an overarching digital system. So if we talk about smart tags on cattle that identify every feature and history and traceability of that cow, the drone can have onboard sensors on there that would go ahead and pick up that data as it's flying through the field and link it with the sensor data that it's collecting and kick that back to the rancher.
Contact your local extension agent to learn more about drone technology.
The American Farm Bureau Federation has been advocating for lawmakers to ditch the Waters of the United States, or WOTUS rule, for 5 years now. AFBF President Zippy Duvall told Farm Bureau members at the AFBF convention last month that the fight over how the EPA defines waters of the U.S. is ongoing, even though the Trump administration submitted a new rule that more clearly defines what waters are and are not. Duvall praised the new WOTUS rule and its contribution to, quote, one of the most productive agricultural policy years in our history, unquote. However, the new rule will be open for public comment once it's published in the Federal Register. Duvall predicts the rule will be met with strong opposition from environmentalists during the comment period because they're great proponents of the old rule. He also told Farm Bureau members he's never seen the AFBF walk away from a fight, and they won't start now. To conclude, he encouraged farmers and ranchers to be proactive and vocal during the comment period to ensure a successful outcome for the new WOTUS rule. Visit fb.org to learn more about the new WOTUS rule. Stay with us. We'll be back with more Angus Report after a break. Welcome back to the Angus Report. Cattle acceptance into the certified Angus beef supply is on the rise.
Nicole Ursig has more with our certified Angus beef market report.
Today I have with me our beef cattle specialist, Paul Dykstra. Thanks so much for being here, Paul. We have seen just in the last year certified Angus beef supply grow by 16%. Tell me about how we've seen certification rates change in recent history.
Yeah, over a number of years, we've set a record for production tonnage of certified Angus beef brand product, and that's done through more animals being accepted into the brand. So just 6 years ago, we would have seen about 65,000 head on a weekly basis accepted into CAB, whereas in 2018, the average was just over 100,000 head per week, which is about 2,600 loads of cattle at the packing plant.
That's a lot of premium beef. Talk to me about how many cattle are actually making it into the brand.
Well, first of all, we have to identify those eligible animals that are black-hided prior to harvest. So that's about 67% of the fed steers and heifers. So of those eligible animals, on a carcass basis, once they're evaluated on the rail, we're at about 32% of those actually being accepted into the brand under the 10 specifications.
And how have we seen those percentages change?
Well, in 2006, we would have had a low spot for CAB acceptance of about 14%. And this year, we're at 32% of eligible carcasses making it into the brand. So a tremendous growth pattern in a very short number of years.
So it's a lot of premium beef that we now have access to. What does this mean for the cattlemen, and what has this meant for certified Angus beef?
Well, first of all, it's good for all U.S. cattlemen because we are creating a higher quality product across the board as a country. So our domestic customers are meeting that with more demand as they like our product better all the time. And of course, globally, we are seen as the high quality source of beef. So that's all very good. From a producer's standpoint, demand is also good for those higher quality animals. Those Angus influenced animals with some carcass genetics behind them are worth more money to the feed yard and to the packer, and consequently they offer more value up and down the chain.
So we're talking about a lot of cattle that are making it into the brand, but there is still some that definitely don't earn those premiums. What's the number one reason that once those cattle that are identified as Angus type don't meet the specifications once they get hanging on the rail?
Well, we do have 10 specifications and they are all important, but far and away the most challenging hurdle to cross is the marbling. More than 90% of the cattle that are not successful at making it into the brand, even though they are eligible, fail to meet the marbling specification.
So that's something that producers still need to be keeping their eye on and taking into consideration when selecting Angus bulls.
Without a doubt.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Paul. For more information like this, please visit cabcattle.com, where you can subscribe to become a CAB insider and get a bi-weekly email newsletter written by Paul.
Hello, I'm Marcus Bricks with the Cattle Facts Update. The S&P 500 stock index has traded higher going on its fourth week in a row, looking to begin 2019 with 3 weeks of index gains. 2018 became the 18th year since 1923 to observe 3 weeks of gains after the new year, but it was the only year out of the past 18 that the S&P index turned lower by year end. From 2010 open, the index rallied 10% into all-time highs in September, capping off nearly 10 years since the lows in 2009. By 2018 close, the index observed a quick breakdown, with the final traded price of 2018 actually 5.3% below the year's start. Geopolitical concerns over things like U.S.-China trade war, steel and aluminum tariffs, and the U.S. government shutdown have affected stocks and commodities alike. If you invested in the Bloomberg Commodity Index on January 2nd, you would have been profitable April to June, but holding all year would have net a negative 9% return. The Bloomberg Index is based on a basket of commodity goods and was pulled down considerably by energy prices 20% lower by year end. One of the greatest investments of 2018 was investing in one's own operation. Agricultural land values have averaged 6% annual growth since 1999. Pasture values were up 3% in 2018, cropland values were up 1%. Economic opportunity existed using the land to run a stocker operation, making profit slightly above break-evens, or selling hay roughly 10% above year ago. Cow-calf operations continued to be profitable, with estimated average returns around $165 per head. This level of profitability has fueled the cow herd expansion, as this segment of the industry is quick to reinvest profits into more cows, more land, and better equipment. The current herd expansion is expected to peak around 2020 without drought, which is also when some economic indicators are hinting at another recession. Even in 2009, at the height of the recession, land values only declined 2 to 3% and had retraced losses by 2010 1 year later. 2019 is likely to be as volatile as 2018, so when looking for opportunity for investment this year, it might pay to keep your attention close to home. For the Angus Report and Cattle Facts, I'm Marcus Briggs.
To learn more about Cattle Facts, your leading source for beef industry market information, visit cattlefacts.com.
Next on the Angus Report, we visit with Kent Black of Black's Barbecue in Lockhart, Texas.
He tells us his restaurant's secret to success. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Angus Report. The Black family has left its mark on Texas barbecue, becoming a cornerstone of culture over the years.
My family owns the original Black's Barbecue in Lockhart, Texas. We're a 5-generation business. We've been there since 1932, and we're proud to be offering certified Angus beef since the early 80s.
Some of the company's most popular items are brisket, ribs, and homemade sausage.
We're in the restaurant business. We're in the barbecue business in Lockhart in the Austin area. And my grandfather always said that your food might have been very good a month ago or a year ago, but how was it today? And so quality and consistency is so important to us.
Those things are important to anyone who wants great results with barbecue.
We have a lot of people ask us, what kind of meat do you use? And or they'll come to me and say, hey, I used your rub on my brisket and it didn't come out very good. And I'd say, well, where'd you buy your brisket? They said, well, we bought it on sale at the grocery store for 99 cents a pound. And I said, you know, we're barbecue people, we're not magicians. So we always tell them the first thing you got to start out with is a great cut of meat.
Just like with some family ranches, taking over the business from parents is not necessarily a given.
When I was going to high school, you know, my parents said, you're going to go to college, you're going to be a professional, and then after you've done all that, then we'll talk about whether or not you're going to be back in the business. So I went to college, went to law school, became an attorney. I was the local judge for many years in the area, and then when my parents, who worked till they were in their 80s because they wanted to, and they said, okay, we're ready to retire and time for you to take over. So I've been very blessed to have that opportunity. And then I have adult sons in the business and some 5th-generation grandkids, but they're a little too young for a sharp knife right now.
And up next, we view a segment of the new I Am Angus documentary series. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Angus Report. Minnie Lou Bradley, a Saddle and Sirloin Club inductee and a trailblazer in every sense of the word, is featured in this year's I Am Angus documentary series. Let's look at the influential role she's played in the beef industry throughout her life.
This year's inductee to the Saddle and Sirloin Club, Minnie Lou Bradley.
Trailblazer and a pioneer and an innovator.
Just an outstanding woman.
Determined, straightforward, hard driving.
And a very outspoken lady that blazed her own path, and she did so and with her head down.
Minnie Lou is great. She's done great things. She continues to do great things.
There's only one Minnie Lou.
Minnie Lou Bradley is the kind of person who inspires confidence. Her hands here are very important. They're important because of the way she's gripping that piece of paper. They're firm. You feel that she is a really strong person. She is a powerful, powerful force.
I grew up in south central Oklahoma on what would be considered now a small farm. And it was during some really tough times, you know, that was during the Depression. I can still remember going into Mr. Hampton's grocery store. Sometimes we couldn't pay for the groceries. I went with my dad everywhere. My dad always told me my limit was what I determined it was. If you wanted to get it done, go do it. Don't depend on somebody else. You go do it. He was a man of a big heart. He couldn't stand to see kids that were hungry or this, that, or the other. I had really 2 good parents. My mother didn't understand me. She was a good mother, but she wanted me to go to a girls' school and make a lady out of me. I had told everybody in the 5th grade that I was going to go to Oklahoma A&M and be on the judging team. There'd never been a girl in animal science, and I didn't know it. I kept saying, just treat me like you would anybody else. Mr. Glenn Bratcher was the judging coach, and I just walked up to him after class and said, I'm going to be on your judging team. He said, well, if you're good enough, I guess you can be. He never thought I'd get that far. I started working out on the judging team, had pretty good success. I knew I had to do good. I had to do better than most of the boys to prove myself. I knew by what they posted every day that I was in the top 5. And so I was really looking forward to Denver. They posted the travel team and I wasn't there. And my heart was broken because I thought, according to the scores, I made it. So between then and Fort Worth, I kept working out. I kept being number 1. It wasn't long till Mr. Bratcher called me in his office and he said, I made a statement to you. I've got to live up to it. I cannot go on knowing that you've worked out and I'm not taking you. But we have spent the day in the president's office with the dean of women, the dean of students, and we cannot find anything that says a girl cannot go.
It's the biggest cattle show on earth, as 1 million pounds worth of animals are on parade in Chicago's International Livestock Exhibition.
I got to Chicago, and here stood the head of the department, Dr. Al Darlow, and he said, you're the first girl that we've ever had on a team. And I'm telling you right now, you will be the last if you don't come through today. And I said, yes, sir. They start at bottom and work up. I wasn't 10, I wasn't 9, I wasn't 8, and just kept going. We got down to 3, and I wasn't there. They come out second, and I wasn't second. And then they hesitated and hesitated. Finally they said, folks, we got something to tell you all. We've just set a historical record. A young lady has just won this contest. I couldn't believe it, and he couldn't either. Dr. Darlow ran up to me and grabbed me, and everybody was going on, you know. He said, let me go find a phone booth. You got to go call your daddy. So that kind of set me for the rest of my life, I think. Spring of 1955. Bill and I just gotten married, and of course it's in the very height of the 50s drought. And we drove up here and across the cattle guard, and there was this old house that was supposed to be white, but it turned red from the sand. Tumbleweeds were up about to the 1st story. The old porch was falling in and all. Everything was in disarray. I mean, it was worn out. Not a windmill was working. Fences were down. But I'll never forget, we got to the North Jonah pasture. He got down on his knees, opened up his pocket knife, and dug up the roots. And he said, well, the roots are alive. I believe it's got a lot of potential. And I'll never forget that, because I thought, oh. I thought I might starve to death for a few years.
You know, it's hard for us to imagine today what it was like to move out here in 1955 with no phone, no water, and not much to operate on, and kind of build it from scratch. Everything that's here was paid for by these cows.
We've been trying to improve it now for 63 years. And we did try a lot of new things. So you had to break a lot of barriers. And I had to break a lot of barriers because out here then, they just never had seen a lady horseback. And thought I was a horrible, horrible lady because I wore Levi's and boots, but always had on no hat and spurs and what have you. And sometimes I did have a gun on me.
Minnie Lou Bradley became one of the first leaders of sustainability. She became a steward of her land.
He got a grant to put GPS collars on these cows. And what we discovered was they weren't using the country.
And then she began breeding cattle that could survive on that land.
I told Bill and his daddy, I said, it's time to turn West Texas black. Let's be an Angus bull producer. But we wanted to raise the bulls differently than most registered operations. We wanted to raise our cattle just exactly like a commercial man did.
They have been innovators from the very start. They were one of the first to record performance data. They were one of the first adopters of EPDs, DNA parentage. She was very involved in helping to develop ultrasound. We've been on the front end of virtually all of those technologies.
Took a lot of ribbon from a lot of people about this won't work, but you know, most of it did.
Today, the ranch is running more cows than it's ever run, and that's a real testament to the stewardship of this ranch. She's had a history her whole life of being first at most everything she's done, whether it was the first female animal husbandry major at Oklahoma State, or the only female president of the American Angus Association. She's kind of been a first, and this ranch has been no different than that.
You know, it's really hard for me to think about all the strife in the world when I sit out on that front porch. Quiet. You know, you don't see a car go by. You don't see anything. Just maybe wild animals, a cow or two. So many of these kids today don't have a mentor, and my daddy was a great mentor for me.
A lot of people would know Minnie Lou from a greatness standpoint of what they see in the beef industry. But I've been really fortunate that I know Minnie Lou in a different perspective. The kindness and the giving spirit that she has. You know, the Crockpot project that she has now in Childress, of where she's helping to help underprivileged kids to have a mechanism to have a way to cook dinner at home, or how she's helped myself and others as students. I know of several students that she's paid for their college education. Not only just a visionary in the industry, but as a person, I think she has embodied what a lot of us need more of, to be somebody that we try to support others in all that we do.
I don't think I'm great. I'm probably below average on most things. The good Lord's just really looked after me really good. I always worry about some of these things that's happened to me. I don't know if I'm worthy of them or not. And I don't want anything that I'm not worthy of. And I will worry about what can I do tomorrow to make myself more worthy of the good life that I've had.
She does have a really tough face, which speaks of her strength, but there's a warmth about her too. So I used these few touches to give a sense of that softer kind of effect. If I had made that piece of paper a little bit more rigid, it would not show her adaptability, that element of softness in her character. That tells you about Minnie Lou Bradley. She's a remarkable person.
You know, Bob, as an Oklahoma State graduate, Minnie Lou is a huge inspiration to me and to many folks in the industry.
I can see why. It's great to see her accomplishments not go unnoticed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all for this week's Angus Report. We'll return next week at this time for more cattle news and highlights.
In the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Angus TV, to view the full I Am Angus documentary. Thanks for joining us.